My name is Kathy Davidson. I'm the founder of the Futures Initiative, which is the organization putting on this event today. It's a very special day today. We're all extremely excited. This is our first University Worth Fighting For event of 2022. It's our first University Worth Fighting For event presided over by our brilliant and wonderful new executive director, Adashima Oyo, who was formerly a fellow in our program and is now our fearless leader. It's also a special day because it combines two of our Futures Initiative signature programs. The Futures Initiative is dedicated to equity and innovation. We believe you can't have innovation without equity, and you need both to really be a major university. Today's program combines both our CUNY Undergraduate Peer Leaders Program, a program that's supported by the Humanities Alliance, funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, as well as our doctoral students in the Futures Initiative, all Futures Initiative Fellows. Lauren Melendez is the director of the CUNY Peer Leaders, along with Dr. Kashima Hutchinson, who's the co-director. The peer leaders, and they'll be introduced to you again later, are Dawn Ressi from Hunter College, Tori Caserta from Queens College, Aaliyah McCoy from Kingsborough Community College, Malachi Davidson from Baruch College, and Malik Breezen-Reed from Medgar Evers College. On the graduate, we will be doing a question and answer period led by the CUNY peer leaders with answers by our our Futures Initiative students, and then we'll be having breakout rooms. The Futures Initiative Fellows are Colleen Chevron, PhD in Geography, Jessica Fletcher, PhD in Art History, Chris McGinnis, PhD in Ethnomusicology, Hillary Wilson, PhD student in Earth and Environmental Sciences, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but if and our interim program coordinator, Jackie Cahill, is also assisting today, and she's our official bouncer. The Futures Initiative believes in equity and innovation, and not in trolls. And if we, no trolls, please. Now, though, I want to have this special pleasure of also introducing our provost and senior vice president, Steve Everett. This is the first event that our provost, who came in the summer of 2021, will be introducing for making a few remarks for the Futures Initiative. I want to say a few words about our provost. He came to the Graduate Center in CUNY in August 2021 from his previous position as vice president and provost at Adelphi University. Prior to that, he was dean of the College of Architecture, Design, and the Arts at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And before that, had many leadership roles at Emory University. He's a musician and a trumpet player. He's also worked with neurologists on topics such as the impact of sound on and ultrasound on epilepsy. Really fascinating. He's written and performed and conducted interactive computer music, including scores for opera and gamelan on leading stages around the world. And today he will lead us on this smaller stage of the Futures Initiative. Welcome, Provost Everett.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for inviting me for this wonderful event today. This is really fabulous that the Futures Initiative is going to be putting together this information for you guys. I wish I had time to speak with each of you today, but just want to quickly welcome you to this event and just kind of maybe tell you a few things you're going to be hearing, I think, throughout the day. But from my perspective, I just wanted to share with you a little bit from my perspective of why you should consider going to graduate school. I thank Kathy for all that introduction, but I started out, before all that happened, I started out as a first college generation of my family. Nobody had gone to college before, growing up in a small rural town in North Georgia. And you probably hear the Southern accent in my voice. And so what happened is when I went to college, I basically never left. So I got a bachelor's, and after I finished the bachelor's, I thought the bachelor's is a lot of introductory courses. You sort of get a touch of things. You sample a lot of different general courses. And I felt like at the end of that, I really wasn't really deep into anything. So I wanted to go into graduate school because I felt like I wanted to have some deeper understanding of the topics that I was interested in. By the time it was music, I started as a math major, but then I changed my major to music in my sophomore year. So I went to get a graduate degree just because I felt like I wasn't really competent in any of the fields that I wanted to be competent in. So the first master's, at the end of that first master's, I didn't still feel competent. So I did a second master's because I really wanted to pursue another area of that. And then I worked for a while, and then I decided I'd go back and get a doctorate. So basically, I've been in academics in my whole life, which I just love it. So what are the reasons why you should consider going to school? I mean, you'll hear the obvious reason that probably your parents, everybody tells you, is that you'll be more employable and you'll have more career options, which is absolutely true. I mean, if you look at the statistics of that, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has shown that students who have a master's, at least a master's over a bachelor's, make 20% more money, and they are hired 20% more than other undergraduates. So you're going to be making yourself more marketable in your career. First of all, that's a very practical reason to consider it. And I think that's still a very good reason to consider it. There are other reasons I think that are just as important. One of the things you discover at graduate school, at least for me more than my undergraduate, was the deep connection you have to your faculty, advisors, and mentors. That becomes a strong mentor network that will carry through the rest of your life. I mean, I still have regular conversations and still consult with my professors from my grad programs. I mean, they became an asset for me. My undergraduate professors, there were too many of us. I don't think I could have that same relationship. But at graduate school, you do get the benefit of having this lifelong network of people that you can go to who really write letters of recommendation for you. They continue to be an asset the rest of your life. And it really has been important to have those relationships. And I still value them immensely. I think for me, the other reasons that I went to grad school, as I mentioned before, were I just had a passion and a curiosity that I wanted to continue pursuing that. If you have a curiosity about something in the world, graduate school is where you really feel like you're getting into that topic. And I love graduate school. I never wanted to leave. I just wish I could go back to school now. The other thing for me was I realized early on that for whatever reason, I guess I grew up in a generation during the 60s and 70s where there was a lot of social consciousness, particularly in Atlanta in the South. There was a civil rights consciousness of that city at the time with Martin Luther King and John Lewis and so many people. I developed a real social consciousness, and I wanted to do things that I felt gave back to people who were less fortunate than I was. And here again, I came from a very poor, I wouldn't call it a fortunate family, but somehow I wanted to work in a job that was not just about myself, but that was about helping other people and making a difference in my communities. And so I think those two were what drove me into grad programs. I wasn't thinking about the careers. I wasn't thinking about all those practical things that I'm sure my parents thought I was just a kind of an idealistic, naive kind of person because I wasn't thinking about real things. I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to pursue issues. But in the end, I think you have to find your own reason for why you feel like you want to go on. There's lots of data that you'll hear that'll tell you why you should go on. But here again, there are things you're going to develop as a graduate student that I think will carry in whatever field you go into. If you're going to be a successful grad student, you have to be able to think for yourself. You have to be dependable. You have to follow through and complete projects. You have to be punctual. You have to be motivated. You have to have curiosity and enthusiasm. You have to be able to solve problems. You have to, particularly willingness to ask questions. A lot of these qualities that grad students have that are successful, these are exactly what employers are looking for in almost every industry. There have been a lot of surveys about what the employers are looking for in their employees. It's not necessarily what's on your CV. It's about those things I just mentioned, because they know that you will be successful throughout your career if you've got those qualities. And in my experience, I didn't really learn those so much in undergraduate. I learned it at grad school. Now, you might be different, but that's where I really felt like grad school is where I crystallized all the skills that I still use every day as a provost. That came from my experience of what I learned at grad school. So I'll stop there. I'll let the experts tell you all the details about the kind of stuff that you're going to need, the practical information to get there. But I really do feel like if you can thinking about it, come talk to me personally. I'll be happy to share you more of my story on this and maybe give you some thoughts. But I really would love to see all of you at the grad center at some point, or any grad program that you decide you want to go into, because I do think you won't regret it. It was one of the best things I ever did in my life, and I appreciate it every day. So I want to thank the Futures Initiative and Kathy and Adasham and all the Futures staff for putting this together. This is a fantastic event, and I hope you all get a lot from it. So good luck today, and good luck with your graduate future. So.
Thank you, Provost Everett. We really appreciate your welcoming remarks. So my name is Adashima Oyo. I am the Executive Director of the Futures Initiative, but I would also like to point out that I'm actually a CUNY graduate. So I attended CUNY for all of my degrees, from undergraduate to my graduate degree to currently being a doctoral student right here. So I'm a huge fan of CUNY. So I want to talk a little bit about what the format is going to be for today. So we've heard opening remarks from Professor Davidson and Provost Everett. So today's format will be a series of questions about various topics related to grad school. First, we will have some undergrads who will start the questions to our graduate students. Next, we will move into breakout rooms for further discussion. And next, we will have 3 breakout rooms in particular. You will have the option to hop from breakout room to breakout room, so you can move around. You don't have to feel stuck in one room. You can go to the room that interests you. Finally, we will return to this main room for any last questions. So I want to quickly recap again about who is here, and maybe we can take the spotlight off of Provost Everett while we just do that section, whoever's doing tech support. So we have 4 PhD students here from CUNY who are also our FI fellows. We have Colleen, who is a PhD in geography, Jessica, who's doing a PhD in art history, Chris, who's doing a PhD in ethnomusicology, and we have Hillary, who is doing a PhD in earth and environmental studies. We also have our CUNY peer leader co-directors. That would be Dr. Kashima Hutchinson from Urban Ed, and we also have Lauren Melendez. We have 5 CUNY peer leaders who are joining us today. We're so happy that they're here. We have Dawn Ressi from Hunter College, Tori Caserta from Queens College, Aaliyah McCoy from Kingsborough Community College, Malachi Davidson from Baruch College, and Malik Brizan Reed from Mega Everest College. So I want to talk a little bit about some housekeeping today. So this event is being recorded, which is a good thing. So you can go back later on and rewind anything that you might have missed, or you want to get those tips just one more time, just rewind it and press play again. We have our FI fellow, Dashira Green, who is a PhD student in English, who is going to be doing a recap post and also helping out with the note taking. And then we're going to be sharing a document all the way at the end that's going to have tons of helpful resources for you all. These will be resources related to financial aid, related to different master's programs, resources about what you might want to consider including inside of your application. So I encourage you all to look at that resource page that we're going to be sharing, but we will also post that resource page on our Futures Initiative website. So I encourage you to go to our website and to keep up to date with what we're doing at the Futures Initiative. Finally, if you have any questions, we want you to ask your questions. You can pop them into the chat and we'll try to answer them. You could also save your questions for the breakout rooms. So for part 1 of our discussion, it's going to be more of a quick overview of some of the different topics. And then for part 2, we're going to have a much more richer discussion in smaller groups where you can hear from our current graduate students about what their experiences are and what tips they might have. So with that, I will now turn it over to our CPL undergrads to start asking some questions to our FI graduate students. Thank you.
Okay, I think I may have a question.
Go for it, Dawn.
Okay. So it was kind of answered in the beginning, but of course we would like more detail. Why would someone want to pursue a master's degree?
Awesome. Thank you, Dawn. I'm going to be tackling the first question, everyone. So again, happy Friday and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of what for some is a very hectic work week to join us for this event today. As my colleague Adashima mentioned, my name is Lauren Melendez, co-director of the CUNY Peer Leaders Program and admin specialist of FI at the CUNY Graduate Center. Before I get into why I pursued a master's degree and why you may or may not want to pursue one, or even may have one yourself already, depending on who is here joining us today for the discussion. But for those who don't, let's start off with what exactly is a master's degree. A master's degree is an academic degree awarded upon completion of a course of study demonstrating a mastery of a specific field of study. It typically takes 1 to 3 years to complete a master's degree and could range from 1 to 6 years depending on if you are going full-time or part-time. Programs range from 30 to 60 credits within CUNY and other private institutions. There are several different master's degree programs you could choose, and this list is extensive. They have Master of Arts in Teaching, they have Master of Business and Administration. You could do a Master's in Engineering, a Master of Fine Arts. You could go for a Master of Library Science. You could do music. You could do a Master's of Public Health. You could do Masters of Professional Studies, Urban Planning, and so on. So many and some may want to pursue a master's degree in general to earn a higher income. You know, some may want to teach. Some may want to prepare for graduate study at the doctoral level. Some may want to expand their knowledge of fields related to their current areas of professional specialization. Some might want to acquire skills and new technologies and methods that have developed in their fields over time. And then there are also those who may want to change career paths like I did. I wanted to make a complete career change from the media field, which I had been in currently at that time for 10 years, working in national television sales, digital media buying, and sales planning. This was a very confusing time for me since I had already worked and made relationships and established myself in one field, and many felt it would not be wise to transition into another field because it would be like starting all over again. So that was one big factor that I was dealing with. And then also factor number two was that there was growth opportunities in the media field that I was in. However, I would say for me, it would have been growth, but it still would not have made me happy in the long run due to corporate industry politics. And also it was still not a conducive environment for growth opportunities for many Black people, for many people of color, and also for women to be promoted and treated equitably. Another factor, number three, that I was up against was that the field I was currently in was very demanding and required long hours and did not make any accommodations for employees who were attempting to pursue professional development, advancement, or higher education if it was not in a field that would advance them through the position they currently had with that particular company. So for example, when I applied for the Master of Science in Education graduate program at Hunter College, I was a sales planner at ESPN, and they did not offer any incentives for employees who wanted to further their education in anything outside of business courses, which did not help me since I wanted to pursue school counseling and work with high school and undergraduates in some capacity at that time. So I started part-time in my graduate program and then was able to transition into a position in academia, which allowed me to work full-time and go to school part-time to work on my master's degree. The Master of Science in Education graduate program I completed is a 60-credit program and prepares graduates for careers in a variety of school settings, which can include, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, colleges. Some counselors also can be employed by organizations that are not primarily educational, such as like correctional facilities, hospitals, and a wide variety of community-based organizations. I also had to do a practicum and fieldwork hours in addition to my coursework credits for this graduate program. And there is a licensure option as well. So it took me longer to complete than 3 years. And also I was attending part-time in the evening, which is another factor which can lengthen your time in a particular master's program. Overall, I would say it worked out for me because I was able to complete my studies and was able to transition into another field just as I planned it. And it didn't take away from my knowledge and time spent in my previous field, but only added to my experience, skill set, and now open doors to additional positions, which can be a route someone thinking about graduate school could make, and it could help make you more marketable and possibly set you apart, from your peers and just others that are in the job field in the market at that time. So that's my little spiel. And now I'm going to pass it to my colleague.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today. So my name is Colleen. I'm a third-year PhD student in geography. And based on my experience, I will share 4 elements that I think are important to decide whether you want to pursue a master's degree. So in my case, starting a master's degree was a strategy to keep studying while also starting to professionalize. That's different from undergrad. It also allowed me to take a little more time to define what I wanted to do before entering the job market. I felt like after my undergrad degree, I kind of still wanted to explore a little bit more my discipline, but also maybe other new courses before actually entering the job market. I was young. I was, I think, 22 at that time, and I didn't feel like fully prepared, but also I didn't feel like leaving academia yet. I still wanted to dive into the experience. So It's also important to note that, and Provost Everett shared that, it's important to note that when you enter the job market with a master, it's also like a big advantage, because in many professions, you get a higher pay. So you're more employable, but also you get paid higher. A second element I think is important is that at the master's level, the cohorts are also generally pretty mixed. You're gonna have like peers that already have work experience. You're gonna have students from undergrad, international students sometimes. And so in my case, it was a really rich way to learn from peers that had different trajectory than mine. And that also, I think Provost Everett said, you get to know the professors a little better. You have a very different relationship with your professor than the one you can have at the undergrad level. So it's a different learning experience because you actually build a very strong academic and future professional network. And that for me was also a key. A third point that I think is really important is that I was able to dive deeper into my discipline. So I kind of knew that I liked social sciences. I was doing political science for my undergrad, but I kind of discovered geography and I was just, well, I think I'm actually interested in that. And so while I actually applied to a master's degree that was oriented around public policies and sustainable development, it was a master's degree that was formally a geography degree. And so I could actually discover much more about this discipline. And I could also get a first experience of research while doing my master's thesis, and I loved it. I chose to work on a public policy around sustainable development, specifically urban agriculture program in the city where I lived at that moment. I was in Argentina. And so it was a great experience because it was the first time I got to learn about method, but also to implement them on the field. So this was really for me a moment where I knew I was interested with academic research, with scholar research. And it's the moment where I kind of started thinking about doing a PhD, which was never my plan in the first place. So that was an important, very important moment. It was also the moment when I had my first teaching experience and the moment where I joined the research center, so I could actually participate in collaborative research projects. So it was really a decisive moment for me to say, well, actually, I think I'm gonna not only do this master's degree, but I'm gonna think very seriously about a PhD. The last point I would like to share with you is that, and Lauren insisted a lot on that, masters are very flexible in their organization generally. So in my case, I was able to work on the side and I was able to explore different sectors of the job market. So actually I've always loved like the arts world. And so I was able to work as a cultural program manager on the side. So I could even develop a first professional experience as I was doing my master's degree. And it has proven to be a massive asset when I actually entered the job market for the first time, because I could show that not only did I have a higher level of education, but also I could show already some elements of professional experience. And as Lauren said also, and we will discuss that further on, there are ways to secure funding that can allow you to have that kind of balance. So I would say these are the 4 elements that I consider to be fundamental in my experience to decide if you want to do a master's degree. I'm gonna leave space now to Tori, I think, asking the second question.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Really great to hear from you both. So for our second question, let's hear about what factors are considered when applying to a master's degree program. What does the application process include? And what are some tips for success? First, we're going to hear from Chris McInnes.
Thank you, Tori. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris McInnes. I'm a PhD candidate at the Graduate Center, and my research is about electronic music in India. Although I study music, my bachelor's degree was in math at City College. In this 2-minute talk, I'd like to suggest 3 tips, which I hope you might find helpful. Tip number 1, you already have a professional career. As an undergrad student, you're part of a network of peers and professors doing cutting-edge work. Search for and embrace the resources around you. Attend academic conferences, and engage with the people you meet there. Learn about organizations, journals, and publications in your field. Most importantly, find topics in your field that interest you. Tip number 2, figure out what connects you and the programs that you apply for. So making a connection involves 3 key points: what matters to the program, what matters to you, and why both parties' interests should align. So research what topics and methods are important to the faculty of your prospective program. Take stock of your interests and career leading to this moment, and blueprint a plan for how you will grow and simultaneously be an asset for the program. Keep in mind that programs can vary greatly in research interests, and so too vary the connections that can be made. Tip number 3, show passion and empathy. Faculty want students that they will enjoy working and interacting with for a long time. Showing natural sparks of excitement about topics in your discipline often outweigh test scores or specific skills. At the same time, you should never doubt yourself because you think you might lack in some area. As a math person, I was warmly welcomed into the music community, where I met many others who also had unconventional backgrounds. So to recapitulate the tips: 1, take initiative and get professionally involved in your field. 2, research what connects you and the programs that you're thinking of applying for. And 3, do your work with passion and empathy. Thank you. So I will now pass it over to Jessica May Fletcher, my colleague.
Thanks, Chris. So hi, everyone. I'm Jess. I'm a PhD candidate in art history at the Graduate Center. And before that, I was doing a master's. I did a master's in film and media studies at Columbia University. And then I did my undergraduate in a different topic. I did it in English literature at University College London in England. So I have a slightly different undergrad background. So I'm going to tackle Tori's question about what the application process includes. So there are a few different components, and they're going to vary based on your field sometimes. So if you're applying to a STEM program, that might look quite different to what is going to be for an arts and humanities program. But a lot of them are going to require 2 or 3 letters of recommendation. So these are always really foundational parts of any application. And this involves you asking professors that you have as an undergraduate to speak to your ability to undertake the master's program and your enthusiasm for it. So it's important to pick professors who know you well. So think about professors you've had a good connection with, hopefully someone that you've written a research paper for if you're an arts or humanities person. In my personal experience, I asked 2 professors who I had written multiple research papers for because of the way that the British undergrad system is made up. And I had also had a lot of one-on-one meetings with them, which was really helpful. So they could provide really personalized recommendations. And also remember, your faculty person is probably quite busy. So at minimum, try and give them 2 weeks to respond. If you want a thoughtful letter of recommendation, it's a great idea to give them 4 weeks or more, right? So really try and plan this in advance. This should be one of the things that you're sending out early to people so that they're not scrambling to try and put something together for you. And then the second component of most applications will be a statement of purpose or research. And this is kind of draws on what Chris just said. So this is where you have to elucidate what it is about you and your research interests that align with the program, what kind of courses you're interested in, what kind of faculty members you're interested in working with. So these should be differentiated between each program that you apply to. You can use kind of the core of what your research interests are, but make sure that you're personalizing the application for each department that you apply to. Give a sense that you kind of carefully looked at course offerings and what the program offers. Also, for arts and humanities people, there's often a writing sample. So this is usually a 15 to 20 page research paper that you've written as an undergraduate. So you should be thinking about that as you undertake your undergraduate studies. And then finally, the more nuts and bolts stuff. You're going to have to get transcripts. Often people want a CV. Some places might want a GRE score. These are less common. We can talk about this more in the breakout room that Chris and I will lead. And also a test of English as a foreign language if you're an international student. And again, we can talk more about the kind of nuts and bolts and people's individual questions, but that's the broad scope of what you guys will need. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll go into the third question. how do I attempt funding for my master's degree?
Valeria?
Yes, thanks, Aaliyah. So I am going to tackle this question. I'm Hillary. I am a PhD candidate in Earth and Environmental Sciences on the Human Geography track at the Grad Center. And I'm gonna give one very important piece of advice, talk a little bit about the kinds of funding that are available for master's programs, and then talk a little bit about my own experience obtaining funding for my master's degree, which I got in urban planning from UCLA. And that was also a career change for me as well, similar to others who've already spoken. So my one piece of advice, and this echoes some things that others have already said, is to research, research, research. As you are researching the topics of interest that the programs you're interested in cover, as you're researching faculty and their research interests, you should also be researching the kinds of funding that are available. There isn't as much funding available for master's degree as there is for undergraduate degrees or even PhD programs, but it is out there. And I absolutely believe that everybody in this room can get at least partial funding for their master's degree program. You should not be paying out of pocket for all of the costs of your program. So the first way to do research on this is, of course, online, by exploring the websites of the programs that you're applying to, as well as the schools that you're applying to. There might be funding available from the university and not necessarily just the individual program that you're applying for. There are also a lot of online databases which you can access through your school's library. There are databases out there that charge a fee, but you should never be paying a fee to access a funding database. Another way to do research is to reach out directly to administrators, faculty, and students at the programs that you're applying for. These are people who have direct knowledge of what funding is available. And so, and oftentimes, available funding may not be advertised online. A faculty member might have just gotten a grant to do research and they have some funding available that they haven't made public. So you really want to reach out to individuals by email or phone. And you can also talk to your current peers and your current professors. You really just want to be gathering as much information as you can about funding that's available. So now to the types of funding that you can expect to find for your master's degree. The very first thing, a lot of people don't think about this, but some programs waive application fees, especially if you have a financial burden. So you will definitely want to, as you're applying or before you apply, reach out to the programs that you're applying to and ask if they'd be willing to waive your application fee. Sometimes they're as high as $150. So that's a great way to save some money. And then in terms of funding your actual degree, there is internal and external funding. So internal funding is going to be anything that your program offers or that the university offers. External funding comes from places like philanthropic organizations, foundations, nonprofit organizations. If you're applying to a professional degree, for example, urban planning or public health, there are professional associations that also offer scholarships and various funding opportunities. And a lot of these external funding streams are going to, you'll be able to find out about these through those online databases that I mentioned, as well as through word of mouth. Another kind of funding varies depending on your eligibility. So if you are someone from an underrepresented group, if you're a first generation college student, you're a woman, you're a person of color, there are funding opportunities available for you depending on your positionality. There are also often, there's funding available based on merit, right? So if you had a 3.5 GPA or higher, you may qualify for various funding opportunities, both within the institution and outside the institution. And then I'll just say really quickly, there are different kinds, there are sort of different amounts of funding that you can get. So programs will have tuition remission, where if you get the, you apply successfully for the funding, you won't have to pay tuition, but you will have to pay things like fees and living expenses. Grants and fellowships are great. You should absolutely be applying to grants and fellowships for a master's program because often those come with a stipend, and they may also include a work or service requirement in exchange for the money, but it's going to be in your area that you are studying in your master's degree, very relevant work experience. And so just really quickly about my personal experience, the most important criterion when I was applying to master's programs was money. I didn't have any money to spend out of pocket, and I did not want to be taking out tens of thousands of dollars in loans. So I prioritized in my research applying to schools that I knew had significant amounts of funding available. And so in the end, I was offered funding from 3 programs. One offered me, Columbia, I'll say it, Columbia offered me a partial tuition remission. And then a university in Illinois and UCLA offered me tuition remission plus a fellowship, which came with a stipend and no work requirement. So this was basically free money. In the end, I went with UCLA because they offered me 2 years of this fellowship, whereas the University of Illinois only offered me 1 year, and it was a 2-year program. So there was no guarantee that I would have funding the second year. And I later found out that UCLA was so generous because they had just been awarded a $50 million endowment. And so they had money available for not just me, but other students in my program, specifically for the purposes of diversifying the student body in this program. So it was a win-win-win for me. And so I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot more that we can cover in the breakout rooms, but I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Dr. Kashima Hutchinson.
Hello, everyone. So another question. Aaliyah, do you have the second question?
No, I think I have it.
Oh, okay.
I think there's one more question here. Let me just get it really quick. My question is, do I work, this is a 2-parter. Do I work while pursuing a master's degree? And how do I balance work and life and preserve my mental health?
Oh, yeah, the most important component. Thank you, Dawn. Well, I mean, you've heard the previous panelists discuss the reason why they got their degrees and how they got their degrees. So really it's dependent on you, what you want to do with the degree, but usually it's for an increase in pay and or a change in career. And so you're pursuing this master's. This is the most 2 popular ones. Some people just are, eternal students and love school so much they just continue to get degrees. But if you're in the 2 that I mentioned, that's usually why it is. As for balance, people like to think balance is like work, life, school. So it's a 33-33 kind of dynamics. The reality is that it's not. The reality is that you have to figure out which numbers will allow you to succeed, how much time you need to invest. You need to figure out what you can do within the time that you're given, and make sure that when you're doing that, you don't compare yourself to others. It's very important to know your strengths and your weaknesses moving forward. And also when you're doing the research, as previously mentioned, that you're familiar with what this degree entails. And so how do you account for it? And so when you're accounting for the things that you're trying to balance, you know, are you a parent? Are you a caretaker? Are you in a low earning but laborious job, which creates fatigue? How does that impact your workflow? What's your mental health? What's your physical health? What's your social health? And so when you do that, you're actually assessing yourself for this new endeavor, right? And so the assessment allows you to say, you know, I need social time where I interact with friends and dance once a month. I need time where I schedule in my therapy. You know, I need time just to take a walk, right? I don't do yoga, but I love to run, right? I don't do yoga, but I like to do puzzles, right? And think about all of that. And also on the circles. So we're talking about balancing. It's great to have a community within the school, and it's also great to have a community outside the school. So in the community inside the school, what I really learned is, and community, I expand not just to people in your class, but people in your program, people in the school. One of my greatest assets and allies in my programs was actually the AP, right? So going to her and talking to her and say, I'm so stressed, I don't know what to do. And she would be so calm. Security, something is going wrong. I can have a conversation with any security guard at any given point and just like deflate, decompress, and that's inside the institution. Your friends are outside. Sometimes they don't care. It's not like they don't care, but they kind of lose it. So it's different ways to do that. And of course, scheduling. Right. And so the schedule is most important. What you want to do is whatever is due, whatever you need to get done. First, you realistic, put that date, work backwards and put everything in it, including the days that you want to hang out, the days that you possibly get sick. You know, you're seasonal, you get sick seasonally. That's a time where you say, you know what, 3 to 4 days, I might be out. Make sure you put every single thing in, and then you'll figure out how much time you have for that assignment. We're a little bit behind time. I have so much more to say, but we'll do that in a breakout room. Thank you so much for everyone who attended. And I'm going to pass it up to Adashima.
Thank you, Kashima. That was outstanding. So we've heard so many great tips already. So if you think part one was great about hearing about funding and the application process and work-life balance, get ready for part two. So in part two now, we're going to open up some breakout rooms and you'll have the option to go where you want to go. And if you don't like that particular room, come out of that room and go to a different room. It's A-okay, it's Friday. So these are our breakout rooms. So breakout room number one, we have, why should I get a master's degree? Should I stay in CUNY? Yes, but we'll discuss that further. That's going to be led by Lauren and Colleen, and I'll be floating among all the rooms. And then for breakout room number two, we have a further discussion about what is the application process really like, right? So what are they really looking for? So Chris and Jessica, they started us off in that discussion, but we're going to take it a little bit further. And also for breakout room number three, we're going to have a continuation of what Kashima and Hillary just discussed about work-life balance, getting the funding, how do you negotiate, all that good stuff. And you'll also have an opportunity in all of these breakout rooms to ask your questions. So this is the time to ask it. Don't be shy. These are graduate students. No one's going to be judging you. We're not looking at your application. So any question that you have, ask it right now. There are no dumb questions. It's only dumb not to ask a question. So ask your questions. And then we're going to circle back around to this main room and we'll do another round of questions where people can unmute themselves or type inside the chat. Okay, everyone, welcome back. I hope you had really great, productive breakout sessions and that you got a chance to get some really good info. So what we're going to do during our last 15 minutes, because we do want to stop at 4:30, it's Friday. So we're going to take any sort of free questions that anyone might have. So you can pop your question into the chat. If you think you want to talk out loud without being too long-winded, you could also unmute yourself and ask your question. So we're going to do that right now for the next 15 minutes. And anyone on our panel is welcome to jump in and answer the questions that are posed right now. So let's see what questions we have in the chat. Do we have anything? Let's see. Drum roll. Nothing so far. Okay, maybe we need another drum roll. Okay, great. So we have a question here from Joey. Can you give us more details about how to request a waiver? Joey, was that addressed already?
I have not seen that question.
Okay, it's in the chat. And then I also see a hand up from Delinda. Okay, so do we want to talk about the waiver, or what are our thoughts?
Well, I just have a quick answer. I'm sorry, are you hearing an echo?
No.
Yes.
Some people are.
Yeah.
Or write the answer in the chat.
Not speaking.
Okay, so Hillary is going to answer in the chat. Maybe meanwhile, Delinda, you can ask your question or share your comment.
Yeah, I guess my question to you guys, what a great panel you guys have. So after this is over, what if someone has questions or want a mentor so they can, because some people can be, this is a new path that they're taking, that they want to have someone that they can help walk them through this, especially if this is something new for them. Will something be set up that they may be able to do that? Speak to someone, or someone else can walk them through this versus just a Zoom setting that we have today.
I'm happy to start the answer for that. I would say that the best approach might be to first identify which program you want to go to, and then to make contact with the admissions office at that actual program.
Okay.
Because they will have a dedicated admissions person or academic advisor, sometimes they wear the same hat, who can assist with that. And I would probably try to start there. But the FI team, we will be available. We're going to write up a full recap post.
Okay.
But I would definitely start with the admissions director at the program.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Yes.
Colleen?
Yes, I would add that an excellent strategy is to contact the administrative or like faculty of the program, but also current or former students, because they are going to give you so much informal knowledge about all the process, like funding, application. They're going to give you excellent recommendation about who are the faculty that are available, and that will actually help you throughout the whole process. And also, so once you get in the programs, many programs have a buddy system, you know, they assign to you an older student that will help you to kind of settle in the program. But really my recommendation is get in touch with faculty and administrators, but also current or former students. They have so much info that they can share with prospect students.
Thank you.
I'm going to read Hillary's response. He said that ideally in the process of researching programs to apply, it would be a question that you would ask your program administrator. Keep in mind the program administrators and faculty are used to receiving questions. So.
Any other questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself?
There's a question in the chat. How are housing experiences like for independent graduate students? Oh, that's a tough one in New York. Would anyone want to share?
Well, I know at the CUNY Graduate Center, we have various listservs, so people sometimes post that rooms that are available or apartments that are available. Also, depending upon the college, again, some campuses offer housing to their students at an affordable rate. But a lot of times, I mean, let's just face it, we live in New York City, like apartments are very expensive, very small. So your best bet might be to see, speak to your peers about what's actually available. Others from the panel want to hop in or type in the chat?
Housing is a very complicated situation in New York City. The thing about when you're coming into a graduate program, some students, are younger, some are living at home, some are like full-fledged adults, and they're like already on their own, paying rent and already have housing secured. In addition to, as Adashima mentioned, that they do have some campuses that do provide some housing, but I would imagine usually backlogged and probably hard to get in because of waiting lists, because there's so many, there's 25 CUNY campuses. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're going to look into that option of going that way. You may want to look into several different things. And as Adashima mentioned, your peers could be, a situation, because you could like rent an apartment and maybe, you could have like a roommate or something to that effect, but that's a challenge here in New York.
Great. So we have a couple of more questions here. So how and where can I find information about programs that require the GRE? So I think to one of the panelists' point earlier, I think it might have been Hillary, the answer is research, research, research. So really to go onto the websites and to see what the application requirements are. If ever the answer is not very clear, drop an email. Someone on the other end will answer that email. And if no one answers the email, then call and then show up in person. So I would say do your research and see what comes through.
Absolutely, and not all master's programs require a GRE, so you definitely want to do the research. Normally, when you go on to the website for the graduate program and the area of concentration you're going into, they're usually listed there. But if not, you can always reach out directly to faculty within the department and they can let you know specifically if that's a requirement.
We have another question here about, can you do a master's without having a bachelor's degree? That I don't know of. However, you can oftentimes do a doctorate without having a master's. You can sort of jump from a bachelor's right into a doctoral program. This is particularly common for the STEM disciplines. But a bachelor's and going right into a master's, I don't know about that. I can do some research, but I'm going to say probably no. What other questions do we have here? When pursuing your master's or PhD, do you take one class versus a full load? Anyone on the panel want to jump into that? What
it's
Hillary?
really
Okay, sorry, Hillary Kashima.
Sorry, it's okay. It's really what you what you can handle. As far as funding is concerned, how much can you afford at once? It's really, if there's a particular requirement of how many classes you need to be like full-time, part-time, like if you drop a class and how that impacts it, that's one thing. Master's degree in CUNY, let me speak explicitly about CUNY. It's fine. You can take one class and it won't mess up your money because they're understanding of why you're going part-time.
Hillary, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so some fellow, it does depend though, right? So you have to figure out, okay, do I need to be a full-time matriculated student and what is the definition of full-time student to get this money? If you really want to keep your other job and you won't be able to, reduce your hours or whatever, maybe it's not worth it to be a full-time student just for that funding, right? But some funding, it's really just money in exchange for some kind of research assistantship or some kind of service, right? So it's really just separate from your status as a full-time or part-time student. But you'll find that out through researching the funding options available in the program.
Okay. So someone asked a question about the PSYD program at CUNY. So I know from experience, because I was doing that program, but CUNY does offer a PhD in clinical psych, which is different from a PSYD. Other questions or comments, please type it in the chat and our panel can answer. Will we be able to find a recording? Yes, you will be. So we're recording it right now. We will be editing the video and we will also be writing up a recap. So all of this will be posted on our website and also on our YouTube page. Other questions or comments in our last 5 minutes? You have a very rich panel here, so.
You all have been incredible. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so in our last 5 minutes, what we can do is we can maybe turn it over to the panelists and see if they have any quick 60-second closing remarks. So does anyone want to start with any sort of quick closing remarks, very briefly?
I can go.
Okay, great, Colleen.
All right, so it's kind of what we were saying in the breakout room about why a master's degree. Master's degree are very flexible, and the information about master's degree that you hear around is not always accurate. So if you're passionate about something and you want to learn more about something and you're not sure you want to start working or you want to keep studying, you can probably actually tailor an experience that's according to what you want and what you need, even more so after the pandemics, because hybrid, in-person and online are so much more flexible. So my recommendation is go for it, ask the question, email, call, insist. Those people are very busy, so it's not personal if they do not answer. You just need to insist, like get through it, you know, get through the wall. Don't get pushed away. Don't listen to people who say, oh, you will never get a job with that. If you're passionate about it, you will actually find a job, you know, like, because you'll actually look for it. So this is my recommendation. Research, 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 as Hillary said, but also don't listen to like advice that are negative. Just go for it, tailor your experience, take the most of it, and be confident that with the work, you will actually find your master's degree and then find a job that you like.
Thank you, Colleen. So I'm just going to go in the order as I see the panelists on my screen. Hillary, do you want to share any closing remarks?
I guess the first thing I would say is that there is money out there available for you. One thing that I didn't have time to mention before is that there are specific funding available for CUNY students who stay in CUNY for their graduate program. Adashima has firsthand experience with this. That's what she did. So we'll have that in the resources that we'll create after this event. And then just echoing what Colleen said, be persistent, be confident in your qualifications. You know, if you're all CUNY undergraduates, you're all very qualified. You deserve to be in graduate school, okay? And so enter whatever space. If you're reaching out to faculty, reaching out to program administrators, just know that you deserve to be there, okay? And you deserve to be funded for your for your degree. So yeah, that's my.
Thank you, Hillary. Lauren, I see you next on the screen. Do you want to share some quick remarks?
Sure. I just wanted to give acknowledgement and thank Priyanthia and also Delinda and also Aaliyah for your, questions and comments that we had in our breakout room. One of the questions that came up was just, what are remote options as far as graduate programs are concerned, especially, with us in the midst or coming out of the pandemic or whatever stage we are of that, Delinda is actually in Atlanta and she was interested in a program in John Jay that's here within CUNY. So, we were just telling her that she should reach out to the graduate program that she's interested directly so that we can see if there's any remote options. And we were just saying, we're hopeful that Colleen also was mentioning that maybe there will be more, flexibility now that we have been in a pandemic, and just to show that we need to have additional options for people who want to pursue these degrees. And also Priyanthia was someone who is interested in working with adults and children with special needs, and she is in school currently, about to finish her undergrad, and also is thinking of going to graduate school, but has been told by many that if you pursue anything with an ology at the end, that you will not get a job. So I wanted to just encourage her that you don't want to talk to just anyone about your goals and the things that you're looking to pursuing, but to just do the research, as my colleagues have been just mentioning all throughout the talk, and just look for positions that actually exist, that that you're interested in, that are similar to what you want to do. And then you can look and see what credentials they have and what programs that they have went to get those jobs and obtain them. But never feel like what hearsay and people are telling you that is what it is, and that's what your journey is going to be like, because it varies and is very different for everyone. So just wanted to offer her some extra encouragement. And then also one of my leadership fellows that's current and that was with us, Aaliyah, she just said it was very useful to her to basically talk and be in a group with others who have went to graduate school and that have positive experiences from it. She had heard horror stories previously from others who have went to graduate school and where it was not a good experience. So we were very helpful to her, and also just reiterating that you need to be disciplined, and also what it's going to take to actually navigate graduate school. And just concluding, I would like to thank all of the leadership fellows who were present, and we appreciate you and hope that you'll go to graduate school.
Thank you. So I'll turn it over to Jessica. I see you next on my screen. Jessica, do you have any closing remarks?
Sure. I just wanted to thank everyone in the breakout room that Chris and I had. It was great to be able to meet some undergraduates and talk to you guys about your goals. Everyone sounded very impressive. And yeah, I think just echoing what other people have said, graduate school can be really enriching intellectually, and it can be a really exciting place to be. And if you research and find that funding and figure out a way to make it happen, then I think it can be a really great next step in anyone's career.
Okay, thank you for that briefness. Kashmir, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, one, have grace with yourself, master's degree or not. Two, take care of yourself, master's degree or not. Three, it just slipped my mind, but I just want you to know that we are very grateful for everyone who attended. This was for you, not for us. We know the stories and we share the stories among ourselves, but we want to share what we know with all of you. So moving forward, you have something in place to propel yourself and make the job easier and make the work easier for you moving forward. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, I have Chris. Chris, do you have any closing remarks?
Sure, I just would like to thank everyone who attended and for all of your great questions. It definitely stimulated a lot of thoughts on my side about what undergraduate students' concerns are right now in applying to graduate school. And I think going forward, there's so much ground that we didn't cover, because now I'm thinking about so many more things that we could have talked about. But I think that what you could probably do is seek experts in your particular areas at your university, so professors in your field, and just let them know that you're interested in applying to graduate school and see what they can do to help you in your path. And thanks again to everybody who put this together. I really enjoyed being a part of it.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all the panelists. I just want to quickly wrap up and say that this is part one. We still have two more juicy parts coming up, not this semester, but next semester. So please stay tuned. And I'll just quickly share my closing remarks. And that is, our question today was, is graduate school for you? My answer, without even knowing you, is yes, it is for you. We need you in the academy. Don't feel like you don't belong. You do belong. You heard from some of the CUNY graduate students here. We are all doing our PhD. You can do your PhD too. It's not that hard. I promise you, you can get out. So I encourage you all to apply to graduate school, perhaps do the master's and then go right into a doctoral program. But please go to graduate school and consider coming to CUNY. There's no reason for you to get a ton of debt. Go to CUNY. We have great faculty, we have great students, and we're waiting for you. So we'll be writing up a recap. We're recording this video. The spotlight is still on Chris, but that's just fine because Chris deserves to be spotlighted. And we will see you at our next event, and have a great Friday, everyone. Goodbye.